Now you come over your lip shoulder when you do your knee moving BRODAK, and you're gonna do the last of the 3 loops coming into it here. That completes the first loop,
Right.
first loop of the first 8. Then come down like that and out. That's what I think is appropriate. But I'll see people come and tick back, and they'll come here and they'll go way out. They never finish the first loop.
Well, I think you hit it on the head. It's starting here, and you do it, and it's not complete until you hit the starting point 3 times.
Yeah.
The 3rd time,
Yeah.
then you're done. Then judges, you stop judging at that point.
It's not the exit that matters at all.
The maneuver, judge, starting and ending is at the same point.
Let me start it, whether you do it over here. If you do it, if you start over here, you start right here, you bring it up to the center, you come around, that's the end of it, right there. Then you fly it back down here.
Okay.
If you do it this way, then you've gotta come back around here, and you either gotta turn around, or you gotta bring it up back to the center.
You have to exit where you started.
Yeah.
And it's, either way, it's there or
You
it's
gotta
there.
tie it off either way.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter how you leave that because it's tied.
It's not
and
judged.
You know, the other
Exit-
thing we did, we
you
put a
exit
start
after
and
you
end
complete.
bar in each one of these maneuvers, because there were none of them in the whole time rules.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the
lot of
at
great-
any point, the maneuver is completed, and you don't judge what happens after that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
On the rectangles.
Yeah.
When you're a judge, and they say they go longer than 60 degrees, which they can, if they go flat across, are you gonna deduct, or should they follow the circumference of the circle? The arc of the circle?
I don't know how you can fly it without flying the arc of the circle, because you're here, you're still flying on.
It's a square.
And basically, you know, what you climb, you gotta pay back, you gotta dive back up, and the only way to do that is to fly, you know, a circle, you know, cut through the hemisphere, but it's right there.
Fly the arc.
In order to accomplish this diagram, you feed in down because the way the plane goes with the arc of the circle, it wants to come like this.
Mhm.
Sure, you gotta think down here.
You gotta give it down and keep it up there so that you can bring down.
Just think about keeping it at the same level all the way around there.
You're trying,
Yeah, that's what you're trying to do.
but that,
Because I've had some judges saying that they didn't fly flat tops.
was sure.
You don't have to fly flat top.
I know, but we need to clarify that with judges.
Yeah, well, that's
So
true.
the wording says the upper horizontal leg should be constant altitude.
Yeah, that's the point. Because when you come up and you start going, your geometry, because you're flying around and round and round, is to trail off. And you must feed in down in order to maintain that altitude.
I know what you're talking about, Phil. A lot of people want to come up here and then they want to cut it across this way, make a straight line. You can't do that. It doesn't, that's
It
not.
doesn't
Well, the
work.
point
It
is,
don't work.
the trouble with the straight line approach is it really depends on where you're standing, whether it's a straight line or not.
Yeah.
This pilot's straight line is different than the judge's straight line.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the thing that matters is a constant altitude,
Yeah.
which means that you are flying, exaggeration, you're flying the bottom, you're flying like an outside, a partial outside loop, really. to
The
maintain
best
the whole
old time,
flight.
the best old time patterns I've seen look like they came up over here and flew and then corrected in the middle and came over. It's really an arc.
Mhm.
If you really watch his hand and see what he's doing, he's just flying an arc across the top.
Mhm.
But to watch him and just not pay real good attention, you think he's flying across and pulling back up and flying a V in the top. I had to watch Tom Looper fly that thing for years before I figured out what he was doing, but his looks better than mine, but it looks to me like he's doing it. No, he's not. He's flying an arc across
So with
the
a
top.
pilot or a judge, you should see a little bit of that in it.
Well, you're gonna see a little bit of movement, but it's just because you're flying at the same level.
Right.
If you do it across the top, you're at, say you're at 45 degrees here, you're at 70 here, and you're back at 45 over here, because you cut the circle. But if you fly it around, you're at 45, and you're at 45, and you're at 45, and you cut down. But you're gonna be feeding in some down to keep it at that level. It's not a straight line.
Well, and it's not, because we're looking at a hemisphere from a plane and everything like that.
Did
that's
you
where
look
it
at
starts
that
getting
thing on
tangled
Stud
up.
Hanger? It's on the first page, that thing you download on your computer, I can't remember who did it. but it shows the different arcs, and they're all like that. You have, depending on where you're standing. Just like a triangle doesn't look triangular unless you're standing right downwind of it.
Exactly, yeah, and, you know, there's always that, if, you know,
The pilot's perspective is different than the judge's perspective because of the angle.
and the judges are standing side by side, which means they have
Two different
perspectives.
That's right. That's why the scores that different.
Yeah, so, you know, so that's, you know, that's kind of a given with what we do and everything like that, but I think the language that really works is that constant altitude language, because you're not putting a hump in it or something like that, you're trying to keep that thing flying parallel to the ground, but because you're flying on an arc, it's actually a segment of an outside loop, right?
Yes, sir.
Or at least you're heavy on the down line. let's put it that way.
Just think as if you fly a big loop overhead, you would be doing this. Okay, so you do it the other way, it's doing this. But that keeps it at its constant altitude.
Okay.
I wanna go back to something Barry was saying, from a judge's perspective, if I see that you come up and you give it the control to start following that arc around, if I see that you overcorrected and you have to come back up like this, like make a little dip, I'm gonna be ducked,
Yeah.
because that's not a smooth maneuver.
Mhm.
I think that's what you were referring to, wasn't it?
No, I was just saying, as a pilot, do I wanna, when I'm giving it down, do I wanna see a little bit of a concave look to the top of that from my perspective, and the judges? And if I'm judging it, and I see that little bit of I don't wanna see it flat, to be correct, as a judge, correct? I wanna
Yeah.
see a little bit of a concave.
Well, I wanna make sure that you're following the curve of the hemisphere.
Yeah, and that's what,
Yeah.
that's what Philip was saying
Right.
too, you
Yep.
have to come a bottom
Yep.
of a circle, and that's
Yep.
the right approach to do it,
Yep.
that's what I was asking.
Okay.
I think if you were to imagine this, or you're gonna turn that up and invert it, and you're just gonna keep flying, it doesn't look like a bunch of humps or anything like that. From your perspective as the pilot, it's gonna look like you're flying a dead level lap.
Yeah.
Even though you gotta be a little heavy on the down line to make sure that you're staying there, that it's not sagging or something like that. So, again, that's the constant altitude language, I think works pretty doggone good for that, so. All right, we're into the finishing kick. I'd like to finish this by saying, so. What I'd really like to see us do, first off, does anybody have any real heartburn over anything we've talked about or anything like that? I don't want anybody to feel like they're being lost over anything. What I'd really like to see you do is you guys are running contests and stuff, try to use this with your judges and everything like that. See if you can find some holes and then make some suggestions for what we need to fix. One thing we did not touch, and I actually got into some, shall we say, spirited discussions on this with, Jim Lee is one of the strongest proponents of old time there is. He's a fabulous man, I love him to death. But we got into this, he says, you gotta fix inverted planes. And what do you mean? It doesn't say anything about 2 laps. Says, well, yeah, the maneuver is judged for 2 laps, and then that's the end of the maneuver. He says, but you have to say, it say, so the event immediately reverse and come back over. Jim, in 1952, there was no such language that said you would immediately turn it over at risk of your score, all right? It's not in there. And he said, well, I was always taught that way. And he said, they said they always judged it that way. Well, they put something there that wasn't written down in the rules.
So that's been the problem with old time all along.
Yeah, it's one of those things, it's,
Different
again,
judges
I
and all that.
could, that's in the area where I could really see some, in fact, I suggested that you please write this down and put a suggestion in. If we want to make it this way, because we all want it that way, or because we're all told that way, then let's change the judge's guide to indicate that. And the judges and the flyers reading the same guide, will fly it that way. But it wasn't that way in the original rules. And that's, there was hard case with trying not to add anything that wasn't there. That's all. Personally, the landing rule, hate the landing rule. I
I don't
would dearly
want
love
it
to
either,
fix
but-
that. But that's gonna take a change,
That's the rule.
yeah. So, anyway, here's a
There's
risk.
still two ways to come into the outside loops.
Yep.
You can still flip it over and.
You do it from dive it in, fly it inverted, and we showed both ways to do the vertical 8. Has anybody seen anybody do the old time vertical 8 starting in the middle?
Starting in the middle.
You can start